What's up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem, and this is Untold Stories, where twice a week we dive deep with crypto's most influential leaders, past, present, and future, to find out how this movement truly came to be and how it's continuing to be. Like just today, Square announced that they're buying $50 million worth of Bitcoin, adding 1% to their balance sheet. It's actually very smart. But today, to join me is the founder and CEO of Proof of Talent, my friend Robert Paone. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
It's crazy with the whole Square. Like, I usually don't talk about the news of the day, but it's very smart, and I think it's smarter than what MicroStrategy did. Do you want to hear why my thoughts? Or let me hear your thoughts first.
I probably agree with you. I mean, my initial quick thoughts is number one, MicroStrategy is, most people I don't think on in the crypto world probably knew MicroStrategy before this happened. Square is like a Silicon Valley darling. It's a Wall Street darling. And they put a small allocation into Bitcoin, which still happens to be $50 million, whereas kind of MicroStrategy just went all in. I think a lot of that's around their corporate governance, it feels like, and just the CEO owning such a vast majority of the voting shares. So, I mean, I think Square doing that is hugely influential.
It's so insane that Bitcoin and crypto itself is finding its utility in the world of the day. Like, it came out of the 2008, 2009 thing. But now what's happening in the world is with them, we've 22% of all the dollars that are around in circulation today have been printed in 2020. Think about that for a second. Over 20% now, our value is debased. And we're hoping that down the road, we don't lose the consumer price index and things like that down the road. But what happens with major companies, and this is what my thought is, and Jack was very smart because I feel like he needed to not justify it to himself, but unlike MicroStrategy, justify it in a way that made sense to other companies to do it as well. And the premise is this. I think I saw Ari Paul or someone tweet about it today. It said major companies lose 1% to 2% a year of all their assets from inflation. They're losing 1% to 2%. By investing 1% to 2% of their balance sheet in Bitcoin, they're basically doing what Bitcoin was meant to do and to be hedged against that fiat inflation. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think, just there have been so many different narratives around Bitcoin, and I don't think corporate treasury has been one that really was.
No, we
was
thought banks were going to do it.
previously.
We said banks were going to be holding Bitcoin in their books, not companies.
And now it could potentially start a trend. So I'm certainly interested to see. I mean, I think Square obviously had a vested interest and had done a ton in the Bitcoin ecosystem prior to. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody else kind of steps out and does something similar in the future.
And I think it's happening, and I think in the background it's happening too. But I want to go back in time because and talk to you today because you very recently were able to do something that you wouldn't think in the state of the industry you could really do anymore. And that is essentially create a company based off of a direct, immediate need that our industry simply didn't have. And that was high-end executive recruitment. And you started it simply by tweeting many years ago and helping people connect and everything like that. And now here we're talking to you. You're the CEO of Proof of Talent. Hold on. Before we get all into that, the show is powered by Blockworks Group, a media production company. They're my best friends. They produce 20 podcasts in their network, including my friends, a lot of other shows. They're really, really great people. Make sure you check them out. And I love emails too. So if you have guest suggestions, ideas, send me a message and watch the show on YouTube and audio and video. But don't spam my inbox. But send me nice emails. I do read them. But okay, so going back to this, tell me about the first tweet that did someone email you and say, hey, do you know anyone helping me find a job? Start from the beginning.
As far as the first just crypto Twitter tweet or starting
Both.
Proof of Talent?
Both.
So, I mean, I got into crypto Twitter. I actually started recording YouTube videos in August of 2017. I was working a enterprise software sales job at home. And kind of like everybody in 2017 was just super down the crypto rabbit hole and really enjoying it. And I had a cheap webcam. I had a cheap microphone. And I decided to just talk about what was happening in crypto. Didn't really know much of anything, but decided to pop on and make some YouTube videos. And while I did that, I created a Twitter account. The first video got 50 views. The second one got 500 and the third one got 5,000. I was like, oh, maybe there's something I should continue to do here. So I just made a video basically every single day in 2017 and early 2018, and went from 0 subscribers on YouTube to like over 100,000. I was like, this is crazy. I have no idea what's happening. And I was just really, really enjoying that process. I love love the industry, and was not incredibly passionate about selling enterprise accounting software at a
Really?
Fortune
Why
500
not?
company anymore. Well, it's accounting, so that's one thing. But decided to try and do what I could to work full time in the industry. I felt like I am making these YouTube videos, but I'm not really working in it. I'm not really participating in it, and ended up with a job in business development and growth at a company that was AirSwap, which is a decentralized exchange that was built on Ethereum. And then from there, I mean, I was at AirSwap for close to 2 years, and just towards the tail end of that, I wanted to start my own thing and see what I could do. And I had a background in recruiting. My first job out of college was actually in recruiting. And I was looking around the industry, and luckily from my job at AirSwap, I had a lot of connections. I knew a lot of people that worked in the industry, CEOs that were hiring. And I looked around, and one day just kind of had an idea. I was like, hey, I don't know anybody that's like a recruiter in the blockchain and cryptocurrency industry. So I talked to a bunch of people, had just really questions about like trying to do market research and saying, okay, you are CEO, you obviously are hiring a bunch. Like, do you have challenges? And a lot of people said, yeah, it's really hard to hire talent in the industry. And then I proceeded to ask that, would you actually work with a recruiting firm if they specialized in that? And a lot of people said yes. So I was like, all right, maybe there's something here, and decided to leave my role at AirSwap and start doing that full time, and just kind of left by myself, in the second bedroom of my apartment, and started to get things rolling that way.
I'm jealous because I wish I did what you did, but it's not as simple as knowing someone who has who's looking for a career, and then someone who has that. You're not being like a dating matchmaker. You have to so let me tell you what you have to do based on this question I'm going to ask you is, what qualities do you look for in a crypto executive that in healthcare or in real estate, someone who's becoming a chief operating officer, you wouldn't really look for that? Did I ask that right? I'm reading an article about how to be a better podcast host.
No, I think so. I mean, so it is a little bit of like, recruiting is a little bit of matchmaking. You basically have two different groups that you're trying to satisfy as best you can. You have the companies that you're working with, and then you also have the job candidates, and you have to work with those companies to find out really like exactly what they're looking for. And then on the flip side, you have to go out, find candidates that fit the bill, but also find candidates that are excited about that. So you're trying to find that kind of exact in between, and make sure that it is a good match on both ends of the spectrum. You want a company that's excited about hiring that person because they're going to add a ton of value to the organization. And on the flip side, you want a candidate that's really passionate about what that company's doing. So they go in there, they are productive, and that's what we try to do.
Do you see any trends in hiring over the course of the past few years? Like, did you see at one point more developers? Now do you see a different type of hire now? Like, how does it all work out?
Yeah, so I would say the one, I think, kind of interesting trend that's happened recently has been like the reemergence or the emergence of the DeFi space.
What do you mean reemergence?
Well, not necessarily like the reemergence of DeFi, but I felt for a while in 2017, you had all these companies building on top of Ethereum, a lot of focus on decentralization. And I think, throughout the like quote unquote bear market in 2018, 2019, a lot of that faded away. A lot of that excitement faded away. So when I started Proof of Talent, it was June of 2019. Most of the work, and pretty much all of the work I was doing, was around the, like, let's say, just centralized entities, traditional companies, whether it's exchanges or lenders, things like that are participating in the industry and obviously doing very well. There was not a whole lot of like blockchain companies. Within the past like 3, 4, 5 months, you've started to see a lot more companies that are the like DeFi players in the space that are now hiring again, or now starting to kind of dive into that space, looking for developer talent, looking for product management talent.
Are you seeing people that are trying to put things out to market now, or are people willing to invest and build out products for down the road? Because one of the metrics, and here for those listeners, if you're interested in some metrics that I look for when I'm trying to look for the top or the bottom, one of the metrics that I always see at the top of any crypto bubble is that when companies, especially the largest ones in the space, are looking to just put out products ASAP to ride a wave. When I see that, it means that they're not putting out their development hours into building out longer term infrastructure and products. And that to me is like a top of like a wave or whatever. Do you see that now, or are we still looking at like not still, but I think we're at the cusp of long-term projects, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still, I think I would tend to agree with you. I would say one thing that I tend to see about hiring is it's a little bit of like a lagging indicator. I think, in like the DeFi space in particular, it went absolutely haywire this summer. There was a lot of growth, a lot of excitement. The token prices of many projects had insane appreciations. And now there's been basically a mini bubble burst of, a lot of these tokens are now down 50, 60, 70%, whatever it might be, after going up 1,000%. And those organizations are still hiring, because I think the space tends to move so fast that it is hard to hire talent at the pace that growth happens. So whether it's a decentralized player or a more of a centralized organization, I think you still saw that in 2017, 2018, where the space went nuts in 2017. You saw a lot of the big companies were still hiring well into 2018. And then you started to see like a culling of some of the workforces, some layoffs at some of the larger organizations in 2019. So I think hiring does lag because it just takes a longer time to hire than the space does to actually go through the cycles that it typically does.
My bear market didn't start till like May 2018, actually, because that's when I tweeted the last time we'll see Bitcoin over under 10,000 is May 2018. And I'm still
a famous tweet.
I'm still getting shit for that. I'm really happy I did it. And I actually remember the location I was when I don't know what got, I was just so excited. But that like started another year and a half of like a bear market of price not getting above, and people still give me shit about it, but I don't care. No, it's kind of crazy with hiring and everything. So how does it typically work? Like, how does someone get compensated for helping another person find a career? How does it typically work?
Yeah, so the economics of our business are pretty simple, and it comes down to charging a fee to the companies that hire. So we charge a percentage fee based upon first year salary of a hired person to the company. So like we don't work with Coinbase, but for example, if we were to work with Coinbase and we were to help them find a software engineer, we would charge 20% of that individual's first year salary, and then from there. That individual does not owe us any fees. So the kind of nice parts and the incentives of it, it's fairly.
What are people making nowadays? Like what's the typical, like if you have a company, Tim Draper and Andreessen Horowitz invest $25 million into the company, Series A. The founder CEO decides to step back because he doesn't know how to run a company above 3 people. So now they come to you and they say, Crypto Bobby, we need a CEO. And this probably happens all the time. This literally happens all the time. How much are they? What does a compensation package look like for a company like that? I'm looking for a job. Hey, I'm just joking.
So it depends a little bit. There's a number of factors. I think location is one, and you're starting to see more remote work. So, if it's New York or San Francisco, obviously those types of cities tend to have very high compensation because they have a very high cost of living. So that's one thing in particular. It also, you have equity consideration as well. How much equity is somebody getting within the business? So if that's a lower level employee or if that's an executive. Obviously, that's going to vary depending upon the stage of the company and the seniority of the individual. I mean, for us in particular, we have placed people, anywhere from $200,000 and above to, let's say, our like average salary probably of somebody that we place is about $135,000 for like a senior level individual contributor or a kind of early entry level manager, somebody of that nature.
Are crypto salaries higher than like other industries equivalent?
I think they're competitive. I don't think that for similar startups, I would say they're competitive. If you're talking about
and then on top of that, you get to work in crypto, like you get to work for something bigger than you. So why? I'm curious. Like, are developers looking to work in a specific chain? Are they looking to be agnostic? Are they looking, like, when you have companies that need devs, like, what do they look for in terms of like their blockchain expertise? This is cool because you're gonna. By the way, after we release this, you're gonna have like thousands of people message you. That's why I'm asking. I'm weeding out your potential candidate list.
So it depends on the company and the role. For some positions in particular, like let's say it's just this kind of a more straightforward backend engineer. Sometimes those people don't need any blockchain expertise whatsoever. If it is perhaps some type of Ethereum developer that's interacting with Web3 and Solidity, that person is probably going to have some type of production level Solidity code in their arsenal previously in their GitHub. So it depends a little bit upon what the actual role is. We certainly do see candidates with preferences, though. Some candidates will talk to them on the phone and they'll say, "Hey, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I don't want to work on anything but." And we'll say, "Yeah, no, absolutely." And some people are,
I like that.
I love, And some people will say, "Hey, I love Ethereum. Like that's what I want to spend my time on. That's what I want to develop with, and that's what I want to contribute." So, I mean, it's really up to us, especially for companies or for individuals that have a very specific view. It's not on us to define that worldview. It's on us to help them find that opportunity.
And I've been talking about sportsbet.io and their clubhouse, which is a huge community. When you play, when you make a bet, when you do a spin, they pay you with free hands, cash back, and bets. You can play all sorts of games, and they've been doing this for so long in a free, fair, and transparent way on the blockchain. Well, that's not why I'm excited today and why I'm talking to you about this. Because now they're taking this community to the next level by sponsoring the Southampton Football Club. You're talking about millions of British football fans can now see the Bitcoin logo on the front and the sleeve of also the Walford Football Club. I mean, how amazing is that? You're talking about not sponsoring your company. You're talking about sponsoring Bitcoin and crypto. Millions of people around the world are now going to be seeing this and joining the sportsbet.io clubhouse to earn more points, to play games, and to be part of that community. There's really no other way that you can use and spend your crypto and then actually earn more back and be part of this whole community. So listen, make sure you guys join sportsbet.io/podcast. Give them the support that they deserve because they're supporting us and me. Go play some games, get some free hands, get some free spins, and make sure you check them out and support them on the Southampton Football Club's first game, whenever that's going to be. Check it out. Do you have to ever interface with non-crypto recruitment companies? I've worked with a few in the past because I remember, so when BitInstant, you want to hear a funny story, when BitInstant launched in 2013, I used a recruitment company to help me bring on staff. And it was like so complicated. It was so hard because I didn't know where to look. Am I going to go on Craigslist? Like, hey, I'm working on Bitcoin. I didn't know anyone. I was 20 years old, but we needed staffing. So I called a recruitment company and it was just like such a funny experience. And yeah, that's what it was. You pay the first year's salary, but no one wanted equity in my company. No one wanted Bitcoin. I offered Bitcoin to people too, I remember.
Should have taken
We did. I think we offered like a 10 Bitcoin sign-up bonus if you worked at BitInstant. Just for signing, if you work for 30 days, you get
100 G's.
Well, I know. Well, it wasn't worth 100 G's. It was worth
I know.
$200 back then.
$2,000.
And then I remember. So a funny story. Like, so the CEO of blockchain.info, Peter Smith, got his job because he was actually at my bar buying something with Bitcoin, and that's where he met Roger Ver, who's an investor in blockchain.info, and that's how it all kind of worked out. So it's so crazy how like it all works out. Do you travel to conferences and you're like antennas out looking for people or looking for companies? How do you do business development? Your model is so intriguing to me. It's so cool because I guess I remember like I was sitting in the bathroom writing the show earlier, and which is what I do sometimes. And the first question I was going to ask you was like, isn't it cool starting a company nowadays, like in 2017, based off of an immediate direct need of an industry that's almost 10 years old?
Yeah. So I mean, on the business development front, and like conferences are definitely a great way. Unfortunately, that's not really happening right now. But I think that is the industry, at least prior to COVID, was like huge about conferences.
I miss them so much.
Great, and so that's certainly one thing. The one thing I would say about like traditional business development in the recruiting world is like cold calling, pounding emails, and we really don't do that. Don't have to do that, and I also don't think like most people in the industry have any interest in getting reached out to in that manner. A lot of what we do is thankfully just referrals, connections, and having a well-developed network in the industry. And then also it's just the way things happen in the crypto world is so different from the traditional industry. Like so much of my work happens in Telegram and things like that.
Crazy.
Like that would be unimaginable for a traditional recruiter to be like, hey, you talk to your hiring managers in Telegram and not email or not over the phone. It's like that's how the industry functions, or at least some parts of the industry. Others are WeChat or whatever it might be, or Signal. But like that's how we approach things. And then we also do some different types of things. Like we work with some of the venture capital firms in the industry to try to help out their portfolio companies as much as we can. When they invest in somebody and they know, okay, they need a bunch of help hiring, hey, here's proof of talent, and they're here to help out.
What are you working on this week? This is a new question I'm starting to ask people. I'm curious to see like their minds. It's like, what are you working on this week?
So we have we're busy right now. It's myself, and then I have two recruiters that I hired that previously worked in tech sales recruiting, and we're swimming in positions right now. So we're pretty busy on that
That's
front.
Good. So you have more positions than you have candidates?
It's a little bit of an interesting balance, especially when you're a small company,
hiring?
and that's something that
No, not like the company names,
everybody.
but is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I mean, I would say hiring right now in the industry is incredibly hot, and I do feel really lucky for that too. It's funny because I was listening to a podcast the other day. Like I listen to a lot of recruiting podcasts about that industry in particular, and there was a company I was listening to that has been around for 20 years. They have like 35 employees. I think they have 25 open positions for the entire company.
Oh, wow.
And right now we have 23 positions that are open for three, for a team of three. So there have been so many industries that have just been absolutely crushed by COVID from a hiring standpoint, and the recruiting industry, or the blockchain industry in particular, has shrugged it off in pretty quick fashion, which I'm super grateful for.
This is an industry where we shrug. This whole industry is just honey badger. We don't care. We're doing something crazy. So do you follow up with the candidates and ask them like how they're like working at these companies? Do you like tell me some stories, like some crazy like bad ones and some crazy good ones? And obviously don't mention names. The company's too small. Change details because I don't want people to figure out who these companies are.
No. I mean, we've had, for the most part, good luck so far with the individuals. that want to knock on wood because things, bad things can always happen. But we've had really good luck so far with the people that we've placed in organizations. There have been, for the most part, everybody that we've placed at these companies has been happy with the roles and has done well. It's been really interesting to see a lot of these companies. I mean, there are certain companies that we've worked with that when I started working with them, it was like a year ago, and they were 30 people. So, I mean, a decent sized company, but have gone on from being 30 people to a Series A to a Series B. And now they're a 140 person organization, and like getting an opportunity to participate in that, on the periphery,
insane. That's awesome.
Helping to staff people is cool and it's fun. And like, that's the really exciting part about just recruiting in this industry is like, you're able to add value to these companies and kind of help participate in their growth in one small way. And I think that's super fun.
We have a question from a guest, from a listener. Actually, that's not from a listener. It's from someone I told him we were interviewing you. Dear Crypto Bobby, I'm a Bitcoin entrepreneur for a few years and have been coding and trading and been very successful. I've had other careers in the past, but have not had a real job in over 5 years. My wife is pregnant and we're going to have a child soon, so I'd like to get a real career. What do I need to do to prepare me to enter the crypto workforce at a real job? Signed, help me, Crypto Bobby.
I have no idea who this could be.
It's not me. I'm not like having a baby.
No.
I just wanted to say. So what does this person, theoretical person, like have to do to? They've been, working in their computer for years. They've been very successful trading, coding, doing all these things, but now they want to get a real job in crypto.
So having proof of what you've done is huge. I think that the blockchain and crypto industry in general is very open to hiring like unique, diverse candidates. Like you don't necessarily like some companies will want somebody who worked in investment banking at Goldman or something like that. Like they're very particular. Other companies, and I'd say more so than not, will be open to hiring somebody that has just has been doing their own thing, but they're competent in what they do. And having the ability to prove that, I think, is key. Because let's say you've been trading, or you have been coding, or writing arbitrage bots or whatever. If you can prove that, if you can say, hey, this is my GitHub, or like, hey, this is my P&L, whatever it might be, like that type of proof
better than a resume
company is absolutely.
How do you make sure someone can work on a team though?
That definitely comes down to, a little bit of us like trying to pre-qualify a person, making sure that they have that like social fit per se. Yeah. But a lot of that does come down to the interview process. And most companies do have a pretty in-depth interview process. Even right now, basically all the hiring is happening fully remotely. But there's usually multiple conversations. Sometimes there's a presentation or some type of test to prove that somebody can
like
is competent in what they can do. Exactly. And I think most of the time, companies have done a good job as far as judging the competency as well as the social fit of an individual to join their organization.
Yeah, that's a big aspect of it, like social fit. What do you think of what are your thoughts on Coinbase's announcement last week about keeping politics and everything out of the workplace and just keeping work? Like reading that and then reaction, like what are your reactions on that?
It's something that I looked at, and I think that number one, just the reaction to it goes to show how heated the political environment is right now. And basically, my interpretation of it is basically that Coinbase said, we're not going to do anything political. And by not doing anything political, there is a certain side of the aisle that is very upset about that. And then there's a certain side of the aisle that by saying you're doing nothing means that you're like passively potentially agreeing with them. And I think that Coinbase I think that Coinbase is within their rights to, and Brian Armstrong is within their rights to say, this is our company and this is the way we want to do things. I also respect the fact that they gave an exit package and people also walked away.
Oh, did they?
There was a post yesterday, but I've seen multiple on Twitter of people saying, hey, today's my last day at Coinbase. I didn't agree with it, but taking some time off. And if that's something that you don't agree with, and you don't agree with the way that Brian and just the rest of the team is conducting business, then good on you as well. So I think that it just the entire political environment right now. I'm not an incredibly political person, and that type of thing just went to show how incredibly heated the
I never in my life thought that you'd have to see Coinbase making that type of announcement or any company. But what people have to remember is, you could say whatever you want when you're reading the article from Reuters or you're outside the industry. But when you work in this industry and we all make our livelihoods, you do, I do, we feed our families. Coinbase is a utility. Coinbase is like our electric company. If Coinbase goes away, Coinbase does a stupid decision. Our whole industry can not fail, but you could have a Mt. Gox moment, right? So, God forbid. So you have to understand it's in all of our best interests for utilities to not take any position on anything and just to do your job as a utility. Have a nice day. That's kind of my position on it.
Yeah, I mean the fact that, or at least from what I've read, that there was basically almost a mass exodus, and I think there's potentially, like I said, there's people that have announced that they're leaving, but at one point they almost had like half their engineering team walk out. So
yeah, because there's a lot of infighting going on.
Yeah,
in there over politics and people who aren't working. That's the problem. But that's not just a company thing. Let's look at this from like a dictatorial point of view, like a dictator or whatever, like a country where there's no democracy. they don't want you to work. They don't want you to have a life. They don't want you to think on your own. They just want you to like be so worried about politics and all this bullshit all the time that you don't worry about like the real problems that you have in your life. Look at these places where no one has jobs, all they're doing is rioting on the streets all day for their jobs, but they're also rioting on the streets for things that don't it's all political. At the end of the day, that's what unfortunately some politicians will do is change the topic and red herring. But I don't even know because I'm so excited for this election to finally be over. You're in Brooklyn, right? Are you still there? Not to dox you. I'm sorry. I can edit that out, by the way. But I grew up in Brooklyn before I moved down here. What's it like in New York right now?
It's been interesting. I mean, I think that there's a lot of, especially when the coronavirus was like in its heat, and I think now we're kind of getting back to that, but not a ton of space. I think people are a little bit on edge, or people were definitely on edge, but overall, there's this painting of New York now being this like terrible place to be, and I think that's silly. Like it's still incredible, but there is also a lot of people now that are in New York City that say, hey, I'm working remote and I don't go into an office anymore, and I'm paying $1 bajillion in rent, and I can go anywhere and do this job. And you started to see certainly an exodus of people. Do I think that New York and all these other cities are going to bounce back eventually? Yes, absolutely. They always do. But there certainly is a short-term exodus of individuals, and because that rent is actually finally coming down and all that type of thing.
I think I saw a tweet today. It said rent is as low as it was in 2013 in New York, and I said even in 2013 it was too expensive. I couldn't afford it then.
It's true.
I remember in 2013 I paid $3,600 a month or $2,600 a month. I forget, for like a 1-bedroom, and I'm like, now where I live, you can you can rent a mansion for that price.
It's true.
It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world we live in. How do you see like how we do you see that evolving? How companies hire people? Will it ever go back to in-person interviews? And when in-person interviews went away, like you can't get everything you in-person interviews are not just about like talking to the person. It's getting mannerisms and some social qualities and seeing how they fidget and did they come late to the meeting. There's all these other metrics and factors you look at. How do you do that with Zoom? And how do you compensate for that?
You try your best, and it's funny too, because like I've gone through the process now of hiring two guys that work with me, and one person I hired entirely remotely. The other person I hired right before coronavirus. He started with me on March 2nd, as an employee, and I was supposed to go out to San Francisco the second week of March, and that didn't happen. But we worked remotely for the entire time up until September, and we finally got together as a company in mid-September. But there are some fantastic benefits of remote work and hiring people remotely. There's also a lot of challenges that come with that. Like you have access to talent basically anywhere in the world, which is awesome. Like, removing the limiting factor of I need to hire within a 10-mile radius is huge. But on the flip side, like it's really hard to build personal relationships with somebody. It's much harder to manage. You have to be like a very concerted manager, and you have to really try. It's just much more difficult in a lot of ways to do remote work. It
doesn't work. I hated it. I'm sorry. Everyone's gonna yell at me, but
some people love it, some people hate it, but there's nothing wrong with that either. Like
it depends how companies
do
it. Just it too. But when I was working at a company, I had to do remote when everyone else wasn't, and I had like a robot in the office, but I had to be in front of my computer at home from 9 to 5 every day. And I said, I'm like sitting in front of a computer, but I'm not getting any of the benefits of being in an office. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think that, do I think that a lot of companies are going to return back to the office, and companies that we work with? Yeah, absolutely. And some companies are going to stay remote. And I think a lot of it comes down to the personal preferences of the people that run the company and then the employees, but mostly the people that run the company. That's who, for the most part, unless they really take stock in their employees. But I think it'll certainly increase the number of companies that are fully remote. or allow remote work. But like the death of offices is highly overrated,
it is
in my personal opinion.
Super highly overrated. It's like we go through these transitions. Okay, so I've been listening to the show the whole time, and I'm someone who's interested in making the leap and leaving my shitty job at Goldman Sachs and work for crypto. How do I contact you? And also, if I'm a great crypto startup and I need help staffing, how do I contact you? Or if I just want to watch your videos or read your newsletter, and because this is so cool listening to you, how do I do that?
Yeah, so our website is proofoftalent.co. There's a way to submit your resume on the website there if you are a candidate interested in working with us, and we'll reach right out to you. Also, if you're a company, feel free to reach out to me. Also on Twitter as well. My Twitter DMs are open, so you could always shoot that to me. But yeah, website or Twitter are two easy ways to do that. And then on YouTube, on YouTube or on Apple, we have like Proof of Talent podcast. And what used to be the Crypto Bobby podcast, we've kind of changed that to actually talk to people who are working in the industry. So it's a little bit more applicable to what we're doing now at Proof of Talent. We've talked to software engineer at Coinbase. We've talked to Jake Travinsky, the lawyer or the general counsel at Compound Finance. We've talked to a woman who is leading biz dev at a quantitative trading firm, just kind of all across the board.
That's so cool. Most crypto podcasts, when I started this show, most of them were just these like general shows. And what we found is that people like specific, that follow like highly produced. So I don't listen to podcasts much, but I'm going to start listening to your show, because that is one, as you see with my questions, how interested I am. And I don't even have anything like prepared or whatever, except for this line. I'm going to listen to the show because I want to hear about more of like these people that are working at these companies and what that's like. I think that's a big part of our industry, and it's a big keeping your finger on the pulse. It's important. So thank you so much for taking the time.